Welcome to Fight News Now. I'm your host, John Pollock. We have a lot coming up over the next hour. John Ramdeen and Robin Black will be joining me as we go over all of today's news, and we'll show you some highlights from the open workouts for UFC 196 from Las Vegas, featuring Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, and much more. We're also going to hear from Bubba Jenkins, who is in action on Friday night as part of the Bellator 151 event in Thackerville, Oklahoma, and the latest edition of UFC Embedded. A lot coming your way, and we're also going to check in with Diego Sanchez. I am here with John Ramdeen and Robin Black chatting about all the news that is going down in mixed martial arts. Of course, it is mainly centered around UFC 196, and the open workouts went down earlier this week. And off the top here, we are going to hear a clip from Conor McGregor, as many people hate to be asked what's next after this fight. Conor McGregor, he's looking way past this about what's next for him after this. Here is Conor McGregor in Las Vegas at the open workouts.
I can go back to 145, no problem. Who is that? Let me see some of these damn bums get up and fight and make some noise. I just hear crying, complaining, please, begging, all this shit. I don't see nothing appealing. You need something. They need to build themselves up right now. I'm sitting pretty up here. I like Robbie. I won't say a bad word about Robbie. He fights with his heart. He's been around the game so long. But if we fought, I would beat Robbie. I'm too fast for him. I'm too, the size difference is not anything. I've stood beside him. I've seen him, But I do like Robbie. I respect him as a champion, as a man that drifted off, came back, stayed on it, and rose up and became the welterweight champion, So let's see how that goes. I mean, that is an appealing one.
So there you have it, Conor McGregor, who, of course, he holds a ton of leverage here, but this has to be very frustrating if you're anyone in the featherweight division, especially your contenders, who this guy is not showing any interest in coming down to featherweight in the near future. And what's this division doing in the meantime? It's spinning its wheels, waiting for a champion.
Yeah, well, Conor McGregor's kind of set the bar so high. It's like, okay, well, where is he going to compete? That's clearly where the eyeballs are going to go. He said it there. He said he doesn't have a problem. He'll go back down to 145 pounds if there are interesting fights there. We all love Frankie Edgar. We think he's one of the best mixed martial artists to come around in the last number of years, but it's not as if the casual fans are excited, because Frankie Edgar doesn't sell a fight with talking. We know what he's capable of, and that's same with 155 pounds. Maybe a fight with Donald Cerrone would be interesting. This fight with Nathan Diaz now at 170 pounds. It just depends on what type of performance you're going to get from Conor at this fight with Nathan Diaz. And again, the options are whatever Conor wants to make them. If he decides, I'm going to stay here or go back or somewhere in the middle, or just have catchweight fights with the biggest fights humanly possible, that's what Conor McGregor wants.
I don't think the 145ers should worry, because it's not in limbo for very long, because in like 2 days, he's going to vacate that belt. So don't you guys worry about it at all. If he has a good performance at 170 pounds, it's going to be like, I don't care about belts. It's between the 155 and the 170 pound title. This is a guy driven by the desire to do great things and to push himself and be constantly tested. There's a natural inclination by great performers or great people in anything to reach something and then kind of freak out and figure out how to defend what you have, how to not lose things that you have so much to risk that whether you're George St. Pierre or Anderson Silva or any of the greatest of all time, eventually they're on the top of that mountain and everybody's coming after them and they have a lot to lose. And they start to fight like they have a lot to lose, and they start to make choices like they have a lot to lose. This is a guy motivated by bigger and bigger and bigger mountains, and that's never going to be a problem with this cat.
With all the weight classes, all the fighters that you have as an option, if you could just pick a Conor McGregor fight for UFC 200, and not overlooking Nate Diaz. That isn't really fair this weekend, but I think regardless, we're going to see Conor McGregor fight at UFC 200. Who makes the most sense from a business standpoint, from just a personal interest of who you would like to see challenge Conor McGregor in whatever weight class?
I think it really depends on what happens in this fight at 170 pounds with Nathan Diaz, because if Nathan Diaz manages to win, I don't know how many people would be interested in seeing him face Robbie Lawler. I think we all would, because we know what he's capable of. But I think the best thing would be for him to go back down and challenge for 155 pounds, that title. That is if RDA is ready for this fight. But when you think about from a movement standpoint, from their skill standpoint, what you're going to get inside of the cage, I mean, a matchup with Anthony Pettis, I think, makes sense because Conor McGregor was a 155-pound champion. Anthony Pettis, the 155-pound champion, former 155-pound champion. And basically the way that these guys match up because of their movements, a fight I definitely would want to see.
It doesn't matter if any of us are looking past Nate Diaz, as long as Conor McGregor is not looking past Nate Diaz, and there's no evidence saying that he is. In fact, this guy is about ultra focus and about constant challenge and growth. That's how he got here. He was just a regular guy in Ireland who was pretty good. Then he was the 145-pound champion. Then he was a 155-pound champion. Then he was a pretty good fighter in the UFC. And then he was a dominant. And this has all been through hard work, setting new goals, and striving to achieve them. So as long as he continues to do that, man, he doesn't believe there are any limits at all. There's a million people I'd like to see him fight, but it doesn't matter what I want to see him fight. The fight he's going to have if he wins this fight is the fight Conor McGregor wants. Conor McGregor's in charge, and the UFC or anybody else involved with him, it's very wise to just go with it, because when great people are doing great things, everybody benefits.
But again, we're talking about realities, because when you think about who is the greatest fighter to ever compete in mixed martial arts, I think most of us will agree, and I think most of the fans will agree, that Jon Jones is simply that. Can Conor McGregor move up to 205 pounds and face Jon Jones? I'm sure Conor McGregor believes it, but there are certain realities.
Yes. I have my enormous doubts about that because I look at fighting for a living, and there's a million reasons. But I sure as hell wouldn't just automatically say he'd get killed, because his self-belief is so strong, his belief that anything is possible, that whatever any of us set our minds to, if we chart it out and do it, that's his belief. So is it possible? Probably not, but I am not going to go with 100% not, because the evidence has said everything this guy's ever set his mind to, he has achieved. That's scary and kind of freaky.
Well, the ceiling for you guys of where Conor McGregor go may be higher than mine. I don't know if we'll see a 205-pound Conor McGregor, but who knows?
The only reason that I even say that is we all put ceilings on things, and we all put ceilings on ourselves. We all put ceilings on possibilities. This guy puts no ceiling on that. That doesn't mean there is no ceiling, but that at least opens possibilities.
Yeah, I also like the fact there's so many fighters that, I mean, they only want to talk about their opponent, and it's none of this other stuff. Conor wants to throw every idea to put in your head that coming out of this, there's a million possibilities, and has had a lot of success with that method. Two men that will also be meeting on Saturday are Diego Sanchez and Jim Miller. Combined 43 fights inside of the UFC, and earlier this week, myself and Robin Black got to chat with both lightweights ahead of their fight at UFC 196.
I've been working with the Cerebrum Health Center in Dallas. They work with NFL players on just rebalancing of the right and the left hemispheres of the brain, and just, you know, they do all kinds of diagnostical tests on your brain and balance tests and eye reaction speed, and there's so many different things that it all starts with the brain. And you know, being a fighter who's been in some wars, and you know, I've never been knocked unconscious in training or a fight. So I wanted to go to this brain center, take care of my brain, you know, and track my brain and know how my brain is doing, you know. And so I've been doing this and taking care of myself because, you know, I want to be there. I want to be there mentally for my children and my grandchildren. So, you know, that's one aspect of the fight, is taking care of your brain. One of the things that they've told me is that just how bad the dehydration is for the brain. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons why I went back to 155. I'm going to continue to try to voice my opinion to Dana White and Lorenzo about bringing in the 165-pound division and the 175-pound division and getting rid of the 170-pound division. I think that would be the best bet for the fighters, with now that they don't let us do IVs and the way that they're just the way that the way that the sport is going. They don't want us to be cutting too much weight. So if they want us to do that, they need to give us more options, and at least every 10 pounds be a weight class every 10 pounds.
I'm trying to make it easier on myself. I'm still not like totally, the whole IV ban. I know why they do it, and I want a clean sport, but I also want to have a hydrated brain while I'm fighting. So I'm not totally like buying into what we kind of get told by, it's better to orally hydrate and stuff like that. But I personally would like to see a couple more weight classes added.
All right, that was Jim Miller and Diego Sanchez. I just found it interesting, the fact that when we were talking about weight cutting, it was both of them that brought up their concerns about head trauma. And this is one of the problems, in that you're eliminating the IV for so many of these fighters. And the goal is that you will go into a fight better dehydrated, because this is going to discourage you from these massive weight cuts. But there's going to be a big period here where guys are still making this big cut, and they are going into the cage dehydrated. And it's causing a problem with all of these big variances between weight classes, that I think a lot of these fighters, there is that concern.
Yeah, I just think it's a good idea to let these guys talk about that stuff, put that stuff out into the world, because I was chatting with Joe Rogan about this a couple of weeks back, hey man, this is a dangerous sport. It's a very, very dangerous sport, as is football, as is hockey, as is boxing. And if you're informed, you know all of the challenges, you know all of the risks, and you're educating, you say, yes, man, this is what I was put on earth to do. We live in a free society. You should be able to do that. But it's good for young guys and young women to know the risks before they start fighting.
Would you like to see more weight classes?
I think so, but I think most people will compare it to boxing. It's like, oh, there's just so many weight classes. How do we follow who all these champions are? Where right now there's only a handful of weight divisions, and I think it's easier for the fans.
Our UFC 196 preview show is coming up this Saturday night. We'll be live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, getting you set for the entire card from Las Vegas, Nevada, headlined by Conor McGregor taking on Nate Diaz.